You're listening to Haunted Tales with Skoto the Reaper. Crying Skies by Hymnofshadows. Chapter 1. The Storm. It was late spring in Georgia, and there wasn't a cloud in sight. The earth had bloomed back into life, and as my friend and I drove through the countryside, I couldn't help but just stare out into the now lively nature. This winter had been a particularly brutal one, and everyone expected it to last long into the months of March and April. I saw snow for the first time in a long time, and I remember there being record-breaking temperatures. I grew up a big-time hunter, and hunting in the snow was a lot more fun than any standard hunt, even if I didn't have any snow camouflage clothing. I remember the meteorologist saying it was unlike any winter they had seen before, and everyone soon grew tired of the bitter cold. And after a hunter from our hometown went missing in a snowstorm, many people believed it wasn't safe to be out alone in nature's brutality. But every farm and property I hunted on was a friend's, so I was never alone. I remember the snow also being a big deal at our college campus. In the beginning, people loved it, and we had a lot of parties outside, but they soon moved inside. But I remember one day suddenly it was like the harsh winter had disappeared. About midway through March, the temperatures began to drastically rise from where they were, and everything was alive and warm again. It was nearing the end of April, and soon I would be finished with this last semester of my junior year in college. I didn't have many plans for the summer, but I wasn't caring about that anyway. Like most college students, I lived life week by week, only caring about getting to that Friday night so I could spend my weekends in a blur. But this weekend, a couple of friends and I decided to get out of town. Two twins who I grew up with and joined the same fraternity with owned a small cabin on an isolated lake in southern Georgia. It was out of the way and the perfect getaway from the hustle and bustle of normal college life. During my younger years, I was a big outdoorsman, spending a lot of time fishing and camping, but nowadays I hardly ever spend any time outdoors, save for a few hunting trips. I was looking forward to a weekend on the lake, with just 3 other guys. My friend Rob was blaring a country station with his windows down as we drove, and I had reluctantly listened to the same few country songs I felt like I heard all the time as I scrolled through social media and played games on my phone until I got bored and just stared out the window. As we turned a corner, I eyed a cross next to a tree, the mark of a bad car accident. Rob quickly glanced at it too.
"Shit, man."
Rob spoke for the first time since we had gotten gas about 30 minutes back.
"What?"
I asked.
"When we invited Sal, we never told him he couldn't bring Olivia," he responded.
Okay, but he knew it was supposed to be a guys-only weekend. I'm sure he didn't bring her.
Dude, remember this December we went hunting here, and he brought her even though it was literally the same as this?
Yeah, and you got pissed at him and they left.
And most people would have learned that lesson, but Sal is stubborn as hell. And ever since he started dating that girl, all he cares about is always being around her.
Yeah, that's what it's usually like having a girlfriend. That's why we've always avoided one. Whatever, man. I just don't want to think about it. Rob turned back towards the road. And if she's there, what are you gonna do? I asked.
Same thing as last time. Tell them to get the fuck out.
We continued to drive without talking as we passed the last few gas stations and restaurants, and the only buildings left were other cabins here and there. Finally, after crossing a bridge over the stream, he took a left turn on a dirt road, where we stopped to unlock the gate. At this point, I had memorized the code as I had been going here all my life. After the gate, there was a dirt road to the cabin, which actually took about 5 to 8 minutes or so to get to, so the house was nestled way off from the main road. Finally, you would get to a hill and drive down it, which would take you to the small cabin and the gravel parking lot. Sitting in the parking lot was Sal's brand new Ford white pickup truck, and Rob's brother's old Jeep. It was an olive green Wrangler from the 90s and decked out. It sat on 2 large tires with black rims and came equipped with a brush guard, winch, and light bar on its leather top. Jerry could have afforded to upgrade any time to a newer car as his brother had, but he'd insisted on keeping this one, and I couldn't blame him. Putting aside the shitty gas mileage and bumpy rides, it looked totally badass. And there was some appeal about the old style, just like this cabin. I knew their family could afford to sell it and get a more expensive and modernized lake house, but there was an appeal to this vintage style. At the bottom of the hill, it sat under the low-hanging cypress trees and Spanish moss. We parked behind the Jeep, and I got out and stretched my legs, feeling the warmth of the sun. The cabin itself wasn't much to look at. It was red-bricked with a brown roof and a single story, with a porch out to the side that contained an outside table and a grill. Nobody ever used the front door, so we went in the side door. The inside of the cabin featured a large main room, which kind of doubled as a kitchen and a living room. On the far side of the door, we walked into a hallway, which led to 3 main bedrooms. Next to the main room was a fairly large porch, which overlooked the water, and the porch had stairs that led to the dock. Rob and I set down our bags, and I heard more country music coming from the dock. We made our way to the porch and saw Sal and Olivia lying out in the sun, tanning on chairs. Next to them was a large Bluetooth speaker and a case of beer. Floating around in the water with noodles was Rob's brother. Olivia and Sal both had dark hair, tan skin, and brown eyes. We liked to joke that he would follow her to the tanning booths in Athens, and I knew Rob wouldn't be able to resist that now.
Shit. I knew he was gonna bring her.
Rob cursed quietly.
Oh, shit.
I followed. Like him, I wanted this to be an all-guys weekend and didn't think he was actually going to bring her. Rob was right. He never left her side nowadays. I also found her a little odd and too quiet. He walked to the stairs and headed down to the dock, causing Sal to look up. I grew slightly worried Rob would make a scene, as he had done that plenty of times. I wanted to say something too, but I was slightly better at holding myself back. "You're finally here!" Sal grinned at him, causing Olivia to look up too.
"What up, brother?"
Jerry shouted from the water, raising the beer he was drinking.
"Hi, all."
I spoke first.
"Hey, Chris. Hey, Rob,"
Olivia said, and I looked back at Rob, who was already shooting Sal an angry glare. Knowing Rob, he would say something about him bringing Olivia with her right there. Sal seemed to notice he was upset, and reached into his cooler. "Here, have a beer. It's a really pretty day." He handed him a can of his cheap beer. "Thanks." Rob took it. "Want one too?" Sal asked me. "In a little bit," I replied. I looked out over the lake. Sal was right. There wasn't a cloud in sight, and I felt the comforting heat on my skin. I'd always liked hot weather more, and that was probably because I was more used to it being from the south and all. I hated the humidity, however, but luckily it wasn't that humid out today. The red bricks on the cabin had faded so much that they basically looked brown. The cabin itself was in a little inlet and blended in with all the tall trees surrounding and engulfing it. There weren't any neighbors for a while, as the cabin was on a large amount of property. There were, however, a few houses across the water and on the other side of the lake, although from our spot, we could only see a small part of the lake.
"Why don't y'all put some chairs up and join us?"
Olivia suggested. I think we were planning on going fishing as soon as we got here, actually. Rob looked at her, before turning back around and walking to the cabin. I turned and followed him, not speaking. My mind was already on the amount of drama this could cause for everybody the whole vacation. I followed Rob back into the cabin, where he quickly grabbed the fishing rods that were sitting by the sliding glass door.
"I knew he would bring her. That shit,"
he said through gritted teeth as he picked up a tackle box from the kitchen table. "Man, what the hell? We should say something to him later." I spoke to him as he walked back out and followed.
"I want to. But let me talk to him in private. Let's just go fish for now. I don't want to think about it."
He walked across the porch and back to the dock. I shrugged and followed. Rob was one of the most stubborn people I knew, and changing his mind on something was always near impossible. Rob was a huge fisher, though, and the only 2 boats he had at this lake house were a very expensive bass boat and a lower quality John boat. "So which boat are we going to take?" I asked eagerly, hoping he would choose the bass boat. Rob and Jerry hardly ever used it, even though I gave them shit about spending money on such a nice boat just to have it sitting there. "I don't think my dad would let me take out the bass boat without him. Let's just take the John boat." "Dude, we're in college. Y'all are freaking adults now. Surely your parents trust you enough to let you use that boat alone." Rob began to set the rods in the tackle box in the John boat.
"I wish they did, but clearly not. I mean, after what happened with the old truck, I think it'll be a while."
About a year ago, Rob, Jerry, and I were all drunk up at the cabin and bored with nothing to do. Their dad kept an old antique pickup truck in the barn, which was all the way back from the 1940s, and pretty much for display only. Rob and Jerry said they didn't even know if the engine still worked, but hated seeing it just sit and rust. Their dad also left the keys sitting at the lake house in the master bedroom drawer. And with nothing else on our minds, our drunken selves decided to try and take that old pickup for a ride. We were surprised when it worked and actually drove it around the property for a good 10 minutes, before the engine began to sputter. Fearing it would break down, Rob drove it back to the barn. But he was so drunk that instead of parking it correctly, he floored it into the side of the barn, puncturing the wall with a big hole and damaging the front of the car badly. I had done some stupid stuff growing up with Rob and Jerry, but I had never seen their dad get mad at me until that day. He was a big man too, about 6'4", and he got up in our faces and yelled and yelled. It was the beginning of the summer too, and I had plans to go work down at the beach with a couple of my other college fraternity brothers, but instead, I spent the rest of it slaving away and rebuilding that barn, and not making a cent from it. You'd think Rob would have learned his lesson about drunk driving because I sure did, but he'd still leave parties or bars back in Athens and drive his own expensive truck back to his apartment, and somehow he had managed to never get in a wreck or pulled over. I didn't have much room to judge him on it, as I was often guilty of doing the same thing. That was your dumbass fault for driving it. I frowned as he got in the boat, and I began to untie the knots. Yeah, and last I checked, Chris, you did nothing to stop me. He shot back as I hopped into the boat too. After that, I stepped into the boat and we drove out of the dock and into the water. His cabin was in a small inlet, which led to bigger open water. The open water was the center of the lake, which branched off into multiple inlets. We made our way to that slowly, along the side of the lake, mostly staying in the shade of some overhanging weeping willows. Every few minutes we would stop and cast out, but have no bites. This weekend is cursed. Olivia must have cursed us, I remarked, causing Rob to chuckle. I had gotten distracted by a family of ducks paddling by and was watching them make their way across the water. A group of people shot by us on their pontoon boat, blaring music and causing the ducks to scatter. They shouted out to us as their waves rocked our smaller vessels. "Dumbass hick rednecks!" Rob shouted as he tripped and fell down to his seat. I glared over at the people in the boat before picking him up. "There's probably some dumb high schoolers who won't even get into college," I said. "Yeah, that's all there is on this lake. No other kids our age." "You know we're kinda redneck too, though." "Don't say that!" he shouted dramatically. "I mean, think about it. We hunt and fish and have lots of guns. We could shoot your AR-15 into beer cans for fun from the back of your pickup truck, or shoot squirrels. If you ask someone from the north, they'd probably, definitely classify us as redneck." "Yeah, but we're rich rednecks." "With class." We both laughed. "Of course, my brother's gonna sit and drink while we're out putting in work on the boat," Rob complained. "Fishing isn't really work, Rob, it's a hobby." "To me it's work. This is how real men survived back in the day." "Whatever, Bear Grylls." Out of the two brothers, Jerry had always been the lazier one. And almost every time we left, it was usually Rob who cleaned up the cabin, which almost always led to him yelling at his brother. We continued to fish for a few hours, but I noticed the wind picking up, causing the cattails and tall grass along the shore to dance. And following closely after, dark clouds began to rise on the horizon. "Is there supposed to be a storm today?" I asked Rob, frowning. "I didn't check the radar. It looks so sunny outside," he replied. "Well, let's fish a little bit more, then we'll go back." He nodded and cast one out. After a couple of seconds, his buoy began to shake before being pulled underwater. "Got one!" He yanked back hard on the rod and began reeling. I watched intently as he fought the fish and eventually lost. "Damn it! Almost had him," he shouted. "That's the third bite you've had today. You still can't catch anything." I laughed at him. I raised my own rod up but stopped when I heard the boom of thunder. I looked up to see that the dark clouds were now towering in the sky. They'd grown at a tremendous rate, not like any storm I had seen before. "We better get back. I won't be caught out here in that," I said to Rob, whose shaggy blonde hair was flapping in the wind like a flag. He nodded his head in agreement and started up the motor. With the slow motor, it took us about 10 to 15 minutes to get back. It was sunny in front of us, but darkness loomed behind us. Jerry was still on the porch, but I didn't see any sign of Sal or Olivia. "Any luck?" Jerry asked as we docked the boat. "I had no bites, but Your brother here had 3 and couldn't remember them, I said to him. Well, Scout caught a bass earlier that Friday night. Rob and I tied up the boat and then joined them on the porch. Where are he and Olivia anyway? I asked, looking around. I was honestly hoping they had packed up and left. I was just about to go get them. Dad was telling Olivia about the columns, and they decided to walk over there. They probably just got there, but they'll get stuck in the storm if they try to walk back. I say we leave them. Maybe that'll make Olivia never want to come back, Rob scoffed. Jerry shot him a look of disappointment. That's a dick move. I'm not going to send them away. Fine, suit yourself. I'm going to stay here, drink some beer, and watch the storm roll in, Rob remarked as he reached into the cooler and grabbed a beer. Thunder cracked loudly. Jerry grabbed his keys. What about you? He eyed me as he pushed open the door. Sure, I'm always down to see the columns. But I'm taking a roadie, I said and grabbed a beer out of the cooler before following him out. The columns were the name of the ruins of an old plantation by the lake. During the Civil War, the Union soldiers burned it to the ground, with everyone in it. And the owner of the plantation had cursed the grounds as he died. All that remained now were the giant Corinthian columns that once encircled the house. It was now a historical site, but an obscure one that most people didn't know about. And the grounds were supposedly haunted, too. The ruins sat in an empty field surrounded by thick woods. To walk them took a few hours, but the drive was much shorter. Sal had just enough reception to call Jerry to come get them, and we arrived to see them waiting. The once white stone columns were now almost as dark as the clouds above them. It made an eerie scene, and Olivia had her phone out and was taking pictures. Lightning flashed across the sky as she and Sal made their way to the car. I was worried we were going to be stuck out here, he said as he and his girlfriend climbed into the back seat. Of course not, Jay replied and began backing out of the field. That was pretty neat, Olivia said, watching it out of the window as we drove off. As we made our way back, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about the storm. Something about it felt unnatural. Soon what was left of the blue sky disappeared and heavy rain was upon us. I tried to search for the weather station on the Jeep's radio, but could only find music. Once we got back to the cabin, we all quickly ran inside, trying to get as little wet as possible. Rob was coming in from the porch, bringing in the cooler. Don't forget the beer in the speaker, I called back to him. He ran out and grabbed it before shutting the sliding glass door. I'm going to turn the weather channel on, Jerry talked loudly over more thunder. The cabin had a pretty small and low-quality TV, but we typically only used it to watch reruns of South Park, or high or drunk anyway. It didn't get many channels, but luckily, the news and the weather channel were 2 of them. On it, 2 reporters were discussing the storm in a newsroom. Behind them was a radar map of Georgia, showing an ever-growing mass of green, yellow, red.
Now, we've never seen a supercell like this before. Started off the coast of Georgia and just one day has grown across the entire state,
The first one said, an old balding male. That's right. Our meteorologists are baffled at the storm, as it's growing at a tremendous rate. There have been numerous reports of tornado touchdowns and flooding. Our reporter in Savannah... The TV blipped out and the house went dark.
Oh, come on!
Rob shouted. Wait, we still have that battery-operated weather radio. Jerry walked over to the kitchen and grabbed the white box sitting on the counter and flipped it on. He was met by the jarring beeps of the emergency broadcast system. A robotic voice followed. The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm, tornado watch, and flash flood warning in the following counties. It went on to name almost all the counties in West Georgia.
A tornado?
I hope to God not, Rob said as he sipped his beer. When he was a kid, a massive tornado ripped through the lake, destroying most of the homes. It had barely missed theirs. Sounds like the damn apocalypse is coming, I mumbled as the rain started coming down harder and harder. As lightning flashed, I watched the boat bounce back and forth on the side of the dock. Hey, Rob, got to put the bumpers out. I turned towards him.
Ah, shit!
He said and opened the glass door.
Come help me!
He shouted to us. All the guys in the cabin leaped to their feet and ran down with him to the dock. The slanted rain was painful and felt like little needle pricks or airsoft bullets.
Damn, that kind of hurts!
I cried. Rob opened the little shed door on the dock and quickly emerged with 2 small white bumpers attached to ropes. As I was the closest to him, he handed the first one to me before turning towards the boat.
Keep it steady!
He instructed the other 2 guys. Sal and Jerry bent down and grabbed the boat, keeping it from moving around much. Rob and I quickly tied the bumpers on, and we all jumped back and ran towards the house. Wow, Olivia mumbled when she saw us. We were completely drenched with water, and looked like we may as well have just jumped in.
I need a damn towel.
Jerry stormed off to the kitchen pantry where they were kept. Grab some for the rest of us, Sal called after him. He came with four of them quickly and tossed them all to us. As I dried off, I watched the tall pine sway violently. I hope one of those doesn't come crashing down, I uttered to Saul, who was watching with me.
Has that happened before?
Olivia asked nervously.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Don't you know anything about storms? Rob snapped back at her.
I meant here.
She said with a quiet voice and looked down. No, it hasn't, Jerry said to her. Look, why don't we do something to pass the time till it's over? We still have all those beers, but the storm's too loud for the speaker. What about your board games? Sal looked at Rob and Jerry.
A board game? You fucking serious?
I'd rather go get struck by lightning. Yeah, dude, we aren't middle schoolers, I added on. That was the last time I'd even remembered playing one of them. Hey, look, just keep drinking till it's fun, Sal said as he cracked open another beer can. I looked in the cooler to see about 10 left. We may need more, I said as I grabbed another one. I was feeling a buzz already, but I was in the mood to get really drunk. Ever since college and my many drunk nights, I built up a really high tolerance for alcohol. Maybe we should get into the liquor cabinet. I turned towards Rob and Jerry. No, not yet. I want to save that for tomorrow. Rob replied as Olivia grabbed the Monopoly board from the bookshelf and set it on the kitchen table. As we started playing, we all drank more and more. And by the time I got to the last beer, I was surprisingly feeling drunk. The Monopoly game hadn't been going so great, and Olivia was beating all of us. I didn't really care, as I was thinking about other things at the time, like getting back to Athens for our next big party.
I guess this must be the real reason you didn't want to bring me around. Because you knew I could kick y'all's asses at this.
She smiled smugly. But something about what she said set me off. The way she was looking at the rest of us, and with all the alcohol in my system, I had nothing to hold back.
Hey, why don't you just shut the fuck up?
I snapped back at her. Everyone, including her, gave me a surprised expression. Rob quickly followed up behind me.
Yeah, we don't actually want you here. You're just ruining the weekend. Just like you ruined our friend.
I am.
You assholes!
Olivia flipped the Monopoly board before storming off towards the hallway.
What the fuck is you guys' problem?
Sal glared at us.
You know exactly what it is. I've told you a million times. We don't like her, and you won't listen to us.
Rob stood up from his chair. Everyone just calm down. We've obviously had too much to drink. Jared tried to calm the situation down.
No, you don't get to say shit. You've been a terrible brother.
Rob turned towards him. Sal stared us down. His gaze turned from one of anger into sadness, and he followed Olivia. And suddenly, I felt a pang of regret.
Shit, dude. I think that was too much.
I turned towards Rob, my brain feeling fuzzy from drunkenness. I don't know what has gotten into you two, but neither of your behavior is okay. And this has been going on for a while. You two need to stop being assholes. Jerry barked before walking out towards the hallway, too. I looked over at Rob.
Screw them. They're just gonna be pussies about it. We're right anyway.
I shrugged and asked.
Did you bring any of the nose candy?
I asked. Rob smiled as more loud thunder crashed and pulled out a plastic bag filled with some white powder. But before he could set it down, it was snatched out of his hand by his brother, who returned.
I'm not gonna let you two do anything more stupid than you already have done. The last thing we need is you starting a fight.
He scolded.
Why don't you shut up?
Rob tried to stand up to him, but fell out of his chair. I started laughing pretty heavily. I think it's time for you two to go to bed. Jared picked his brother up.
Screw off.
Rob shoved him back. I stood up and felt the world spin around me.
No, I think he's right,
I said, began to stumble towards the hallways and bedrooms. I passed Sal and Olivia, who glared at me. I ignored them and shut the door before falling into the bed and immediately passing out. Throughout the night, I would wake up periodically to the roaring thunder and lightning flashing. I woke to the sound of someone knocking on my door, and the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was, and the sunlight beaming through the windows. The storm had passed, and then I remembered the drunken outburst I had. Oh, shit, I thought. Come in! I yelled to whoever was knocking at the door. Jerry swung it open and walked in. I immediately started talking, so he wouldn't bring up the fight yesterday.
Oh, what time is it?
I asked groggily. Like 11, he replied. How many beers were in the cooler again? Like 40, and you and my brother drank almost all of them yourselves.
Sorry about that.
I hung my head. We both walked out of the bedroom and into the living room, where no one else was. Where is everyone? I asked. Up observing the damage from the storm. Was it bad? I said as I spotted my phone still sitting next to the Monopoly board. Yeah, a tree fell over our road. They're looking for the chainsaw in the shed right now. I turned on my phone to see it was sitting at 2% with no service. There was almost never service at their lake house. In order to get some, you had to go to the top of one of the hills of their property. This was very annoying, especially at night. I looked over to the kitchen and noticed they had biscuits sitting out on a plate. It was Jerry's favorite meal to make. Power come back on? I asked as I started eating a biscuit. Nope, all their phones are dead also. Well, shit. I still got a tiny bit of juice in mine. Let me go walk to the hill. The tree fell right on the road by the hill, so just come with us. I sighed, knowing it was a gamble to see if my phone would last that long. But I figured the power would come back on later anyway, and I didn't want to look like more of a selfish asshole, especially after last night. I grabbed a lukewarm water bottle out of the fridge and began drinking it. I was expecting Jerry to bring up yesterday's incident. Come on, let's go up the mount, he merely spoke and walked out of the cabin. I hurriedly finished my breakfast and followed him out. The first thing I noticed was the damage from the storm. Leaves and branches were everywhere, and one of the tall pine trees had fallen onto another, which was the only thing that kept it from crushing the cabin. At the end of the driveway was a medium-sized garage, but now it was just filled with old equipment and that old truck. Jerry led me there, and I very quickly heard voices coming from within. And right as we walked up, the three came outside, and Rob was carrying a large chainsaw. As soon as Sal and Olivia glanced at me, I felt a twinge of regret. But then I remembered that I still felt I had been right in what I said. I expected him to say something about it too, but he didn't. Y'all see that pine up there? I pointed out the one leaning on the tree. Yeah, that's scary. I don't know what we can do about that one, but I'll tell my dad once my phone's no longer dead. We gotta go deal with this one up on the road, or else we'll be stuck here, Rob replied. How big is it? Thankfully not the same size. It was a young tree, I think. My plan's to cut it up into pieces with this, and y'all can pick up the pieces and remove them, he said as he lifted the chainsaw into the air effortlessly. Rob was one of the strongest guys I knew, and someone who was almost always in the gym. He also gave me a lot of crap about that, since I hadn't gone to the gym at all since I had gotten to college, and felt myself getting weaker by the years. Let's take my truck since it's in the back. He walked over and threw the chainsaw on the tailgate. I jumped in too, along with the others. The road to the hill was bumpy, and I sometimes worried I would fall off of the truck if I had sat on the side, so I always got to the tailgate fully or gripped it tightly. Once we got to the fallen tree, Rob stopped the car and we all hopped out. I pulled out my phone to check and see that it had died on the way up here. God damn it! I yelped. What is it? Jerry asked me with a scrunched face. The phone died. I just want to lose my Snapchat streaks, you know? Jerry laughed a little as we walked over the log. Rob started up the chainsaw and we got to work. The process was grueling when accompanied by my hangover, but by the time an hour had passed, we eventually got it done. After that, we all headed back to the cabin, expecting the power to be back on. When it wasn't, Rob and I started complaining. Hey, you never know. The power lines could be down across the state. Maybe there was a massive tornado and they're trying to clean up that damage. Sal threw the idea out.
Why don't we use the weather radio again?
Olivia suggested and walked over to the white radio sitting in the counter. She turned it on, but only static came out. That's odd. Must be something wrong with that. Sal looked at it with a confused glare. Well, I guess we could just wait till it comes back on? Jerry looked around at all of us. That's fine. I think Rob and I were going to spend most of today fishing anyway, I spoke up. But we could always stay here and get drunk. I walked over to a full fifth of whiskey that was sitting out on the counter. That's for tonight, asshole. Rob smiled at me. Y'all had the boat yesterday. Let us retake it, Sal suggested. Fine. Just don't crash it, Rob replied. Sal, Jerry, and Olivia proceeded to collect some rods and take the john boat out to the water. Meanwhile, Rob and I brought some chairs to his dock and began fishing there. I wanted to bring up the incident that happened last night, and and I felt like now was a good time for it. So, has Sal or Olivia brought up last night to you? No, and I wouldn't give a shit if they did. I still don't want her here. Don't you notice how I haven't talked to her? Yeah, but we were still assholes about it, I feel like. Sal won't say anything. He's kind of a pussy. And come on, it wasn't that bad. Rob swung his line back into the water. I guess you're right. A small part of me felt bad, but another agreed with him. I just couldn't tell which part I felt was right. We continued fishing, and around lunchtime, a pair of kayakers came paddling close to the dock. It looked like a father and his young daughter.
Catch anything yet?
Father called up to us. No, not yet, I replied. Damn, that was one hell of a storm last night, wasn't it? Yes, sir, it was, I shouted back. Say, want to hear something weird, though? Yeah? My lake house usually has cell reception bleep in and out, but after that storm, we haven't got any service at all. The father looked up towards the sky. That's strange. Maybe the storm took down a cell phone tower? Maybe there was a bad tornado? I suggested some possibilities. Haven't heard anything, but we're going into town today. Did see a massive tree fall on a house over by Eagle Rock. Eagle Rock was the name given to a popular set of jumping rocks on the lake. The water was pretty deep and it was a popular party spot. There were several rocks of different heights, with the tallest being 80 feet. I had never jumped off the top one, as I was always scared of it. Good luck with your fishing, Rob called out to them. The father smiled and they continued paddling. We continued to fish until lunch, and Rob actually caught a decently sized catfish. For lunch, the others returned and made sandwiches. The rest of the day was pretty normal. We drove around the lake in Rob and Jerry's John boat, listened to music, and surveyed the damage. From what I saw, there was a surprising amount of fallen trees and limbs floating around the water. That storm had definitely been one of the most violent I had gone through. We stopped by Eagle Rock and jumped off the 40-foot-tall one. After that, the sun started to set, and we drove home. I expected the power to go back on, and everything seemed to be going normally until it got dark. There were multiple flashlights in the cabin, so we wouldn't be stuck in the pitch black. But before I broke into the whiskey, I heard Sal shout from the dock. Come take a look at this, guys! We turned around and we all went outside except Rob, who stayed to finish washing the dishes. I knew what he was talking about immediately when I stepped outside and saw the moon. The moon, which hadn't risen that high in the night sky yet, had turned the color of crimson red. I had seen this phenomenon before, but it usually had a more orange tint to it. This was a straight red. Its reflection in the rippling water made the water look like blood, too. Looking at it gave me the chills for some reason. What the fuck? I simply uttered. That's not normal, Olivia said from behind me. Sal turned back to us. What do you think's causing that? I don't know. I didn't think it was possible for it to get that red, Jerry spoke up. I don't like it. It's creepy, Olivia followed. You think it could be from the storm? I looked around at all of them. Possibly, but that doesn't seem right. I'm sure there's an explanation. I wish I had my phone to take pictures of it, Sal said as he began to walk back inside. I followed him and heard the first of the coyotes howling. Then a chorus followed, and I noticed Olivia flinch a little. Coyote howling was something that used to creep me out as a kid a lot, but not so much anymore. Jerry immediately told Rob about the moon, and he went out to go look at it. Maybe it's a sign Dracula's coming for us, Rob just chuckled, not taking it seriously. He'd already gotten into the whiskey. Hey, don't you have a battery-operated radio? I grabbed Jerry's shoulder. Yeah. Let's turn it on. Maybe they'll be talking about the moon. Jerry went into the closet and returned with a small black handheld radio. He pulled out the antenna and switched it on, but was only met with static. Then he turned the knob and went through all the channels, but only more static came out. No matter what channel he landed it on, that's all that came out. And suddenly a very strong sense of unease came over me, like we were in something way more serious than we had thought. I'm scared. Olivia leaned into Saul, who wrapped his arm around her. Don't worry, guys, it's not a big deal. Now how about that whiskey? Rob smiled, trying to lighten the mood. I think I'm just going to read a book I brought, Olivia replied. She then walked into the bedroom. I figured after what happened last night, she for sure wouldn't want to drink with us again, and I was right. I brought one too. Sal turned around, but Rob grabbed his shoulder. Hold on a second. I need to talk to you. He waited until Olivia had gone into the room and shut the door to start speaking. Dude, you're forgetting I'm the one who invited you here, not your clingy girlfriend.
She's not clingy, alright? I'm sorry she just wants to spend time with me. You and Chris wouldn't understand, since no girl at our college would date y'all assholes. Shut the fuck up.
Rob gave him a little push, causing him to stumble back. Sal stared at him for a moment, before speaking. Whatever, man, he said, and walked into the room after Olivia. Now I'm beginning to think we shouldn't have brought him either. This weekend would have been a lot more fun with just the three of us. Rob looked at me. Be careful, your bedroom's next to his. Now he's gonna boner extra loud, just to annoy you when you try to sleep. I sat back, and he broke out in laughter. We continued drinking a little longer and then went to bed. At this point, we all considered this weekend a bust and just wanted to get back to Athens. I woke the next morning with the sound of a loud boom. At first I thought it was thunder, but looked outside the window to see it was still sunny. Assuming it was another storm on the horizon, I walked out to the living room and onto the porch, where Jerry was standing, looking up at the sky. Was that thunder? No, it was 3 jets. Like, military jets? Yeah. Why would they be flying over this rural lake? Well, they're headed east, and east from here is Savannah. But Savannah doesn't have a big military base, does it? Fort Benning is the other way. I think there might actually be one in that way, Sal interrupted us, stepping out onto the porch. Fort Stewart, I think, or something like that. We've been coming here since we were kids and never seen any military stuff before, I said. And neither have I when you haven't been here, Jerry replied. I'm very worried about what's going on. I think something bad may have happened with that storm. Well, severe thunderstorms usually are pretty bad, I smirked at him, then felt bad, thinking about the Olivia situation. I think maybe that storm was an attack from somewhere else, maybe another country. I couldn't help but giggle a little. Why? Radio not working, the red moon, the jets. Something is obviously going on. I don't think it's safe for us to go back. Dude, we have school tomorrow. We have to go back. Actually, I agree with Sal on this. I think we should be cautious, Cherry chimed in. Well, do y'all have any bright ideas? Statesboro isn't that far, right? Or what about that really tiny town that's just about 20 or 15 minutes away? You know, the one with the big gas station we always get our beer from? Sal's eyes darted from Jerry to me. You mean Kim? Yeah. Wait, why the hell is it named after a girl? We've wondered that our whole lives, Jerry laughed. Well, how about I drive over there and make sure everything's going good? Why you? Clearly y'all don't want me here anyway. Sal's gaze shifted to me, and his piercing eyes made me look down at the deck. Well, what if it's not safe? If something did happen, I'll just come back immediately. I'll have my shotgun with me just in case. Sal turned around to walk back inside, and I noticed Olivia watching everything. You really think something bad has happened? She asked with intrigue. There's no way to know for sure unless I go. He tried to walk past her, but she grabbed his arm. Just hang on a moment. I'm trying to make sense of the situation. What nation would even attack us on the East Coast? Our enemies are like what? North Korea? Terrorists in the Middle East? How would they have access to technology enough to create their own storm? Your theory just doesn't make any sense. Smart girl, Cherry whispered to me. I know, but something's going on. You can't deny that. Right, Olivia? Sal asked her. Something does feel off. She looked away from him. Despite my thoughts on the situation, I still had that same feeling deep down, but I wouldn't let my emotions get in the way of logic. Look, we don't need to make a big deal about this. He'll be back in less than an hour. I spoke loudly. Mm-hmm. Sal grinned a little, and we all walked out to his truck, where he got in and started the car. The radio came on, but it was only static. Try flipping through the channels. There's probably not a lot of them out here, Olivia suggested. He turned the knob, but every channel he fell on remained just static. That's not right. He frowned. The storm probably knocked over radio towers or whatever, I said. Although it did make me feel a little uneasy. I guess this is it, baby. He stared at Olivia before laughing a bit. She laughed back and gave him a hug. If you see any North Koreans out there, make sure to show them not to fuck with Georgians. Sal looked over to the rest of us, and I felt the ping of guilt again. Once Olivia stepped back, I stepped toward him, with an urge to apologize. Look, man, about what I said. Sal put a hand up to my face to stop me, before speaking to me in a mocking tone. Look, man, I really don't appreciate the things you said, but we could talk about it when we get back to Athens, not here. Wait, Sal, he interrupted me by slamming the door of his truck in my face. Come on, brother. I tried to continue to talk to him, but he ignored me and started up the engine. Sal then made a 3-point turn before quickly driving off. I looked over to Jerry and Olivia and asked, where even is Rob? He's still sleeping. I'm gonna go read till he gets back, Olivia said to us and walked inside. Well, what do you want to do? I asked Jerry. Want to go to the range and shoot? He replied. Hell yeah. Could bring your AR? Fine, but we can't use more than one mag. Sweet. We walked inside and I went to go wake up Rob. We went and got several guns out of his safe, including a 5.56 AR-15, a lever-action 270 rifle, Glock 17, and a double-barreled 12-gauge. Jerry and Rob's family was always big into guns and had to have over 20 overall. My family never owned a farm, and I only owned one rifle for deer hunting, but I still enjoyed getting to shoot with them when I could. Of course, they were much better shots than me. I was still pretty good, however. Shouldn't we be going back home? Where's Sal? Rob asked as we walked towards Jerry's Jeep. Sal thinks we've been invaded by some foreign country and doesn't think it's safe to go back home. I scoffed. Rob started laughing. Did you not hear the jets this morning? They flew over the lake. I bellowed. So what? You don't think any of this is suspicious? Along with that moon? Rob seemed to scan me before answering. No, the Air Force does test flights all the time. But overthinking shit. Hey, Sal's the one who could be risking himself for your ass. And you two have been nothing but dicks to him this weekend. Jerry's voice took an angry tone. Hey, I tried to apologize, I butted in. But Rob was even louder. My ass? The only ass he gives a fuck about is that one sitting inside the cabin. The one he's actually attracted to. That's not true. Jerry's tone calmed down again and he looked off. Whatever. I'm just gonna see this as an extra day to get shoot guns, so let's go. Jerry said as he put the guns in the Jeep and hopped into the passenger seat. Jerry got in the front and I got in the back and we drove off. His range was on a hill near the front of the property. It was equipped with multiple target boards, a wooden deck, and a skeet shooter. We spent the rest of the day there, besides returning briefly for lunch. Throughout the day, more jets flew over, and I began to really wonder where the hell Sal was. Once the sun began to set, we headed back to the cabin. Should have been back by now, Jerry said as we went along the dirt road. Maybe he's caught up talking to someone about what happened, he suggested. Or maybe he got captured by the evil North Koreans and is being tortured as we speak. I chuckled a little, and Rob followed. Jerry remained quiet. Once we got back, Olivia was eagerly sitting out on the side porch, waiting for Sal. He should be back by now. Where is he? She asked frantically. We don't know. Like I told him, he's probably talking to people in town or something. But if he does come back, let's have a nice warm meal prepared for him, I replied to her. We all walked inside and began preparing to eat. The sun began to set. The crimson moon rose. Sal didn't come home.